Ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your seats because what just happened in Washington is one for the history books. Chuck Schumer thought that he could outsmart reality itself, but instead, he just became the face of total political humiliation. We're talking about a No Kings protest that was supposed to show strength, unity, resistance, but what America just witnessed was confusion, chaos, and complete collapse. Protesters couldn't even explain why they were even there. Organizers were handing out cue cards so that people could remember what they were angry about. And right when Democrats thought that they could shift the headlines, boom, the GOP drops an AI bombshell. A digital Chuck Schumer recreated in his own words goes viral across the country. And suddenly the line between propaganda and panic disappears. Now, the same party that screamed No Kings is bowing to the king of their own creation, artificial intelligence and public outrage. This is the story of how Chuck Schumer's deepfake disaster and the failed No Kings protest just torched Democratic credibility overnight. Stay tuned, guys, because what you're about to see right next, this is going to shake DC to its core. Hit the like button and subscribe. So it all started with one clip, guys. An AI-generated video of Chuck Schumer repeating his own words about the government shutdown. Only this time, it wasn't a quote buried in fine print. It looked like Chuck Schumer himself saying it on camera. Within hours, it exploded across social media. The GOP used his real remarks, but kind of wrapped them in synthetic truth, forcing Democrats to confront a new reality, their own leader exposed by his own voice. The image of Chuck Schumer smirking through a digital mirror, it became the symbol of a party that's losing control of its message. And so while Democrats scream faked, Americans ask the bigger question: why did the words sound so believable? Because the scandal didn't just embarrass Chuck Schumer, it proved that the Democrats' war on misinformation, it had finally circled back and detonated inside of their own camp. What a boomerang. And the irony, it went viral faster than any official statement that he's ever made. Then came the so-called No Kings protest, pitched as a nationwide stand against authoritarianism. They shouted slogans like defend democracy and destroy fascism. But when reporters asked what they were actually fighting about, most couldn't even answer the question. Some thought it was about Trump, others thought it was about classism, and a few said it was for freedom, whatever that meant. Organizers even handed out 30,000 palm cards so that protesters could remember the talking points. That alone pretty much tells you everything. You need flashcards when conviction is missing. The irony? Well, these demonstrators claimed to reject monarchy while President Trump, an elected leader, was sitting in the White House, chosen by voters in a free election. The No Kings crowd demanded liberation from a king who doesn't even exist, yet never questioned the career politicians who've ruled Washington for decades. This wasn't activism. This was confusion wearing a hashtag. Now, it used to be normal to just stick with one Medicare plan forever, but times have changed. Premiums rise, doctors switch, benefits vanish. But that's not all. Medicare premiums are set to skyrocket next year, and many Medicare Advantage plans are disappearing altogether. This is why the new normal is reviewing your Medicare plan every year with Chapter. They make sure that your plan grows with you. Now, one of our viewers, she said, Chapter made checking my Medicare plan so easy, I'll never skip it again. So let me ask, are you going to stick with the old way, or are you going to join the new normal like most people already are? Now, most people are already calling that phone number right there at the bottom of your screen, or they're visiting askchapter.org/Ron. That phone number again is 909-563-8279. Now, by the second day, even the organizers couldn't pretend the No Kings movement was catching fire. Footage showed scattered groups, bored attendees scrolling through their phones, and speakers yelling into the half-empty seats. One viral moment captured volunteers begging people to please take a stack of flyers, proof that no one even knew why they were protesting. The chants were recycled, the energy was flat, and the message was non-existent. College football games that weekend drew 20 times the attendance of their revolution. News outlets called it symbolic resistance. Conservatives called it performance art with no purpose. But here's the truth, guys. It wasn't resistance. It was a reflection. It was a movement built on outrage rather than understanding. So when people show up to fight an imaginary king, pretty much tells you that the rebellion was never about liberty. It was about clinging to victimhood in a country that's already free. Now, for Democrats, the No Kings disaster, it wasn't just about bad optics. It was confirmation that the party has lost its emotional connection to reality. The same people who once marched for civil rights or worker protections, they're now marching just to get attention. Even liberal commentators admitted the messaging was incoherent. They called it a missed opportunity, but voters saw something even deeper than that. a movement led by elites pretending to be oppressed. So when Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and their allies applaud this confusion, pretty much tells America exactly where the party stands, not for principles, but for posturing. And in 2025, under President Trump's watch, that posturing looks weaker than ever. The Democrats once built their brand on empathy, but today, it's pure theater. They're performing rage to stay relevant, and the crowd is finally walking out of the show. Then came the real gut punch. The government shutdown. Democrats blame Republicans as usual, but Americans, they saw right through it. The House GOP, they had already passed a clean continuing resolution at President Trump's request in order to keep the lights on. It was the Senate, led by Chuck Schumer and his crew, that blocked it. Why? Because fighting Trump sells better than serving America. When the paychecks of ordinary Americans were on the line, Democrats treated it like political theater, dragging their feet, meanwhile lecturing about protecting democracy. But this time, guys, this time it backfired. The GOP flipped the script by releasing the AI Schumer clip, reminding voters that even when Democrats talk about saving the people, they're really calculating leverage. The party of no kings suddenly looked like the party of chaos, playing games with livelihoods while pretending to fight tyranny that only exists in their imagination. And just as the shutdown dragged on, another truth resurfaced. Democrats, they were more concerned about illegal immigrants than legal Americans. So while cities across the country struggled with crime waves and rising costs, Schumer and his allies doubled down on protecting undocumented residents. Conservative media began showcasing stories that the mainstream ignored. A 61-year-old killed in a hit and run by an illegal alien, a woman assaulted in Chicago by a migrant with prior arrests, and local police blocked from turning him over to ICE. Each one of these headlines told the same story. Democrat policies shielding criminals over citizens. And when Americans asked why, the response was silent. It's not compassion when your own people pay the price. The left preaches justice for all, but in practice, they defend lawlessness and they call it virtue. That's not empathy. This is negligence masquerading as morality. And this is where it gets interesting, because the same Democrats defending No Kings protests as the pinnacle of democracy once cheered when conservative voices were silenced online. Anybody remember 2023 when social platforms banned, throttled, or even fact-checked anyone who questioned their narrative? When Trump supporters were flagged for misinformation left and right that was called safety? But now, when their own rallies flop and their own leaders get caught in AI scandals, suddenly they rediscover the beauty of free expression. The hypocrisy, guys, it's absolutely glaring. Conservatives were censored for facts. Liberals get sympathy for feelings. The left says speech is violence, right up until they need a protest permit, right? What you're seeing is selective outrage, a movement that celebrates freedom only if it serves their agenda. The irony? It's Trump's America now, where protests are allowed, protected, and televised. Proof that the dictator that they feared never existed. Now, here's where the mask slips. The people screaming no kings are ruled by them, just not the kind that they admit. Chuck Schumer, 45 years in power. Nancy Pelosi, 42 years in power. Bernie Sanders, Dick Durbin, Elizabeth Warren, decades each. These are America's true political monarchs, sitting on thrones built from taxpayer dollars and media loyalty. Meanwhile, they accuse Trump, a man elected by the people, limited by term, and audited by the press, of acting like a king. It's projection at its finest, guys. The founders rebelled against royalty so that no man could rule for life. Yet Democrats keep recrowning the same insiders year after year. They don't want no kings. They want their kings. That is why this protest flopped. Americans recognized hypocrisy faster than any headline writer in Washington ever will. Now, here's where you come in, because this moment isn't just about Chuck Schumer's embarrassment or another failed protest. This is about what Americans like you are seeing with your own eyes. Do you really believe that those career politicians speak for the people anymore? When they cry no kings but live like royalty, when they lecture about democracy, meanwhile they're censoring dissent? Isn't it time that we just start asking some tougher questions? The reason that this video matters is because every protest, every media meltdown, every deepfake scandal reveals the same truth. They have lost control of the narrative. So drop a comment down below. Do you think Chuck Schumer and the Democrats can recover from this? Or is this the moment that their entire strategy of moral superiority finally collapse under its own hypocrisy. Now, I want to hear your thoughts, guys, because you decide where this story goes next. This entire episode, from the No Kings flop to the AI Schumer fiasco, is a collision between illusion and exposure. Democrats promised resistance, but what they delivered was embarrassment. They promised to fight fascism, but ended up shouting at clouds while AI made their own leaders look foolish. The word meltdown doesn't even cover it. It is a total credibility implosion. The party of narrative just got out-narrated. You can feel the desperation in every press release, every televised excuse, every forced smile behind the podium. They're losing control of the emotional high ground that they've weaponized for years, and the American people are finally waking up to it. It's not just a protest gone wrong. This is the collapse of an entire political illusion, unraveling in real time for the world to see. So it's October 2025, and President Donald J. Trump sits in the Oval Office, elected, not crowned, and that single fact shatters the entire foundation of the No Kings protest. The same people screaming about tyranny are living under one of the most transparent, media scrutinized, and term limited presidencies in American history. There's no dictatorship here. There's just accountability and results. Under President Trump, the border is secure, inflation is cooling, and the economy is roaring yet again. Yet, these protesters are out here in the streets losing their minds, claiming oppression because their side lost an election. That's not courage. This is denial. They're pretending to fight for democracy while refusing to accept it. Every chant of No Kings sounds more and more absurd when the real power, the people's power, is exactly what put Trump back in office. Now, the irony, their rebellion only proves that this republic is still working exactly as designed. Now, I want to talk about the new battlefield, AI and digital warfare. The Schumer deepfake wasn't just a prank. It was a wake-up call. We've entered an era where truth competes with technology. Democrats spent years weaponizing the term misinformation to silence their opponents. But here in 2025, that narrative flipped because now artificial intelligence doesn't take sides. When the GOP used Schumer's own words in a synthetic clip, it forced Americans to ask, is this deception or exposure? It blurred the line between political messaging and media accountability. And for the first time, Democrats couldn't hide behind fact checkers. The AI didn't invent his arrogance, it amplified it. This is why the scandal hit so hard. It wasn't fake news, it was true behavior repackaged in pixels. In this new media age, integrity isn't about algorithms, it's about consistency, and the left just lost theirs. At the heart of this entire meltdown lies a clash of worldviews, victimhood versus victory. The No Kings movement thrives on grievance, convincing followers that they're powerless, oppressed, and perpetually under threat, that they're victims. This is emotional dependency dressed up as activism. But on the other side, you have Trump's America, a mindset of abundance, not apology. The MAGA philosophy doesn't beg for freedom, it builds it. It says, you're not a victim of the system, you are the system's master. That is the difference between whining in the streets and winning in real life. Democrats feed fear because it keeps voters loyal. Conservatives fuel confidence because it keeps America moving. The No Kings crowd scream for liberation, meanwhile standing in the freest nation on earth. Meanwhile, Trump voters, they were out working, building, and thriving, no protests required. So what does all of this mean moving forward? Well, the Schumer AI scandal and the collapse of the No Kings protests, they're more than isolated embarrassments. They're turning points. They expose a party that's out of touch with reality, trapped in outrage and addicted to narratives that no longer move voters. Every chant, every meltdown, every deepfake denial pretty much chips away at what little credibility that they have left heading into the 2026 midterms. Meanwhile, President Trump's administration keeps producing results, lower costs, stronger borders, safer streets, and the contrast is blinding. Democrats thought that they could win hearts with hysteria, but America is tired of noise. The future belongs to those building, not breaking. The No Kings protest wasn't just a flop. It was a funeral for the politics of performance and the beginning of a new era of accountability. Like, subscribe, we'll see you next time. Hey, by the way, guys, if you're one of the real ones who really enjoy what we do here on the channel, you've got to check out the Inner Circle. This is where our true supporters get exclusive access to content that I just can't share here, completely commercial free. It's also the best way to keep this channel going strong. So if you want to be a part of something special, join us over there. Links in the description or in the pinned comment down below.